Hi everyone, welcome to Sysonex. So the outline is that we'll have the presentation and then we'll have a further discussion on this topic following a demo for this entire presentation. So today's topic is really all about governance and strengthening governance and how we can make governance better with the help of enterprise risk management or just general risk management itself. So I just want to go to this next slide, and this next slide is very simple. It just talks about Sysonex itself and our three products, but focusing from there, I want to take you guys to today's landscape, what we see as risk management, providing oversight, accountability, involvement, insight, data-driven needs. So all of these are really coming back to the idea of, can we deliver better governance? Better governance, it's for any and every organization. And these days, governance is so present, so present in every location, that what does it really mean? So really, it's a lot about the usage of best practices tied to a process that delivers controls, so that way there's common ways of doing things throughout the organization. All the while, this is really, structured and articulated, and also ensured that there is common usage and common processes approved by the organization. So for governance, you need to have the ability to deliver on a common process and common fairness, and that's why the area is very important. And the next here is that it really needs to be accepted and administered by a body. And hence, you will see that governance is not only applicable to, say, any specific organization or any specific entity. Rather, it is fairly pervasive in all organizations, broad stroke. And interestingly, the companies that manage their risk well, those are the same companies that do governance well. So we did a study, and we worked with several of our colleagues, and we found that any company that has a very good understanding of risk management and how risk should be delivered for their organization, they're also able to deliver governance very well for their organization. I want to take you to this particular slide. And this particular slide really talks about what is the merit, and the merit of risk management. How does that really support governance for the entire organization? And as risk management can have many different lenses, but what we've realized over the years is that a risk management team or a body or a group of individuals, and again, risk management is, some people say it's everybody's job, but I do believe that there are some individuals more dedicated than other individuals within an organization. So who are the individuals involved in risk management? So you always have the frontline staff, and that staff or that individual is tied to the team or the engagement. You have business stakeholders that are also doing some aspects of risk management activity. They're part of the process. You have a risk analyst, risk manager, risk monitor, auditor, and your CROs are also tied to that. And then finally, the corporate board is also really sitting on top of the entire totem pole. So what are they doing these days? They're collecting the enterprise data. They're articulating risk throughout the enterprise. And this risk is really all about understanding what is required for the organization and what actually brings it to good health. That's where governance really comes into play. what is required for the organization to deliver on good health. So resolve the individual risk items, and again, you have governance-related violations. It does trigger a error, and you can actually start resolving those entities as violation of governance controls, and results the effort by individual teams to collect the data. Risk manager. And this is the person who's actually really looking at the controls and the controls that should be in place. So you might have, say, a governance for say a shipbuilding company where they have stringent rules towards delivering on footwear, gloves, hats, hard hats, etc. But that itself is actually structured around a selective rules of guidance and guidelines that have been established so that the company stays safe for the foreseeable future, so that there are no lawsuits or potential loss of life as a result of operational failures. You have the risk monitor, risk auditor, and this is where your CRO, Chief Risk Officer, also lives, where the individual is really looking at the view of multiple lines of business, and also not only doing strategic views, but also doing operational activity. And how does that tie in with the governance? Well, this individual can identify, monitor, understand areas of governance that there is a gap, and they can contribute towards resolving those gaps, resolving those governance concerns and issues that do generate risk, and then identify those risks as something that needs to be resolved. A lot of times, we already have controls and compliances that are already established by a specific industry or multitude of different industries, or it can be common, such as, say, your security controls or security guidelines. Those are also your governance elements that support the well-being of your cybersecurity infrastructure, such as a NIST, ISO, etc. So finally, the corporate board. The corporate board is really telling us that, hey, this is what the risk appetite for the entire organization is, and this is what your level of risk tolerance is going to be, and this is the risk management direction that we need to have. And that is really set forthing that we will not go beyond a particular risk that we can actually not handle. And your risk appetite is just that, within that tolerance and appetite, it's just that gap area that you are trying to ensure that your company operates. And that operational gap also impacts how we move as an organization. So I won't take too long anymore, but I'll say there's data loads that needs to happen. There are controls that needs to happen. Track risk tied with governance that needs to happen. Controls improvement that needs to happen. Visualization and governance and overseeing organizational maturity. These are all very critical areas towards delivering better governance through the usage of risk management for a organization, or for any organization per se. Okay, so I wanted to take you guys to this slide, which is ERM as a foundation for transparency and accountability. And I mentioned to you very early on several organizations that we've worked with and talked to, where the business processes tend to be opaque, not readily available, not known, not communicated well enough, and that's where the governance failures happen. And as a result, there's always the feeling or the assumption that there's bias, or there's a preference in that organization. But when you have governance elements built into it, built into process of the organization, you again realize that violation of that governance process is really a risk. And if we resolve those risks, we have a much more better, transparent organization itself. And I want to mention that transparent organization results in transparent reporting. It ensures that you have documentation and process established for the entire organization. And importantly, while you have a risk that you have a owner for, but it's also you have stakeholders tied to that risk. So these are the individuals, or these are the section of the organization that is affected by that risk, because governance in this case is really tied with the organization or the organizational business units that we're trying to focus on. This brings me to this slide. How would you actually go about looking at all the different risk items in a singular location? You can definitely follow a risk register. And as I mentioned, if you go through ISO 31000, you can see that there's a value creation and protection approach, which is integrated, structured, inclusive, dynamic. And this approach results in the process clauses. And then that talks about reporting of, governance activities that can be done, communication and consultation and monitoring and review of this process. So while we're saying that, how do we really do governance? Everybody does it differently. But the looking at it from a risk lens, and all of our colleagues over here today who are involved in the risk industry or the risk management industry, you realize how you can really transform a organization from a maturity level that where on a CMMI index, it might be just maturity level 1, and using risk, or you considering that there are areas of improvement and monitoring those areas of improvement, you can gradually bring it up to a index of say 4 or even 5 in this case. Finally, I want to take you guys to this slide. The ERM-driven governance, better decisions, fewer surprises. So two of these presentations I really wanted to provide to you guys is if you're in any industry, and if you're in the insurance industry, it seems like the insurance industry, who literally deal with risk on a regular basis, they deal with risk management. Guess what? Their governance area is also better. They have their process, the documentation, everything is better. But when you look at it, several other industries, you look at technology and media, there just needs improvement, transportation, life sciences, global energy and materials, consumer, advanced industries. They're all within the bracket of needs improvement. And this is a study from McKinsey that they've provided. But if you notice, the good area is really insurance, and I believe that the compliance, following that compliance, is also within that insurance organizations that are actually very well apt in that area. And this is the average risk assessment scores that we've actually identified. That do they have a structured risk management process delivering your governance? So risk taxonomy is present in an organization. So this is, needs improvement versus they're doing very good. Board is involved in risk management. So if you notice, board is not really directly involved or engaged. They have understanding, but this really needs to increase because they provide the oversight. Risk is appropriately taken into account in key event-driven. Again, that's a gap over there. Organization conducts self-assessments of its risk culture. So risk culture, or risk itself, risk framework evaluation, this is happening. This is for sure happening. I think we as risk practitioners, we're seeing this more and more, that this is really occurring. And this is definitely a positive side that we can take away, that yes, there's change in the air, change in the environment, where we do see individuals doing more risk assessments. So this is pretty much those slides that I want to share. Last slide, and automated updates reduce manual effort and error, dashboards and board-ready heat maps. These are all tied to your visibility and maturity for the organization. So you look at governance not only from the lens of risk and risk management activity, but governance as a whole. You can improve it with the aid of risk management. Risk gives the ability to say that this particular governance or this control that has been established, it is not played or performed or done well. And that is the observation that we've actually seen, that when you plug in governance as a process flow with a control, and there is monitoring of those controls not being respected or not being followed properly, and there's scores tied to it, you really start to get a better understanding of your organization's governance maturity. And again, a fair and competitive organization definitely delivers more increased value to its shareholders. So before I want to do a demo, I want to mention empower your enterprise, identify risk, resolve non-compliance, and drive at seamless innovations. That's what we're all here for, towards ensuring just a better organization and a better and improved governed organization for the companies that we actually work with. So this is our flagship product, SysRisk. It is a risk management tool that delivers risk management for an organization. It has enterprise risk management module, project risk management module, compliance module, third-party risk management, integrated your contract risk management, and operations risk management for sure. So this really is the dashboard that provides you, that when you log in, it provides you a view of your organizational profile. You can look at your own personal account settings. You can look at your product subscriptions that you have for yourself. In this case, this person only has two products, project risk, and you can see your group management. So now group membership from a landscape of it actually really shows what your areas of expertise and what your areas of capabilities are for a organization. Your activity timeline really shows what are the engagements that you're actually involved with on a daily basis. And this actually comes back to that governance activity. So now I'm going to go straight to this location. And that actually gives you, again, the idea of governance. You want to see who is using, who has access, who are the individuals in the group, how would you actually go about adding those individuals to a better and improved areas of expertise. And then finally, you can visualize the administrative logs, the user logs, and also, as I said, the administrative activities. From here, you can also look at your company profile. You need to have a company profile that allows you to understand what your company is, your company information, say general information, financial, safety measures, operational information, all stored so that from the back end, this data can be fed into a AI pipeline. And also you want to know what is the status of your organizational onboarding, or what is the level of completion of your information. So this also gives you the ability to see what are the products that you actually have, how you're owning it, what those product lists are. Are there any products that you actually really want to select or utilize for yourself? And also the ultimately, as I mentioned, the product catalog that shows the subscribed products and any other products that's actually in the pipeline. So for this individual users, there's a single product, that's the enterprise risk management, and the admin module is really so that way you can do all the governance tied to your product management itself as an activity. This is what you see from a dashboard view, and I've mentioned that the only way you do great governance is when you have views and visibility. So you can look at approved risks, you can look at recently added risk, you can look at risk resolutions, risk monitoring, portfolio target score, your current risk score for the overall organization. So if you're covering environmental, operational, reputational, political, and any of these areas, so you can now aggregate all of your value and say, you know what, this is my risk score for this particular area. You can look at your risk completion, so how you're actually following your governance, how you're like measuring your risk in every single category. So now suddenly governance is not like it's a nebulous activity, don't know how it's done or who can do it. No, you can actually measure it, calculate it, and ensure that you know exactly how it's actually improving for your organization. And that's very powerful. That's very powerful for us as risk practitioners. So here's the area of risk entry. The interesting thing about risk entry is risk entry is not entering risk. It's more like adding scribbles on a piece of paper. And you add scribbles on a piece of paper before, in this case, colleagues who are using Excel, from scribbles of paper, you actually are transferring it into Excel sheet, and that goes through the approval process. So here you have consistent governance mechanisms towards actually understanding what that risk should be and delivering you that risk product. And you can actually visualize it and say, okay, this is something that I want to do, use, utilize, etc. You can save this risk, and you can save and ask for approval. As soon as it goes ask for approval, it goes and say, okay, I need to like get this approved. Then again, here's another governance stage. You can actually approve as a manager. You can approve requests for changes or reject that risk. So now from a governance side, you're observing a particular review or view for your organization, you can definitely change it. And again, this also works the same thing for enterprise risk management. Your risk register, it states all of the risks that you're actually facing. So all of your governance related issues that you're looking at, you can resolve those governance related issues via this charter and look at it. From risk prioritization, it gives you the view of what are the main risks that you're actually facing, what are the minor items, what are trend life cycle changes, trend prioritizations area, some of the critical items, and as soon as you actually identify these critical items, what's the dollar values tied to those individual risks, and here you can actually visualize all of these things. Reporting, you can actually generate a report. You can report name, and once you've reported that name, you can actually start downloading that report for against that specific area. It's also tied to our audit functionality, so you can now add all of those areas. And once you've actually selected a audit or a report, you can generate the files, and it will be like stored one by one, and it's stored within the system itself. So now again, you have governance built into your reporting mechanism for your organization. And this is aside from the data and that data that you already visualize. So now you have a data dump that gives you the ability for better risk management. A risk closure, and again, risk closure, you only have so many individuals who actually have the permission for risk closure. So you have 3 individuals who actually really can close a risk, and all 3 need to sign, or you can have 3 or 2, whatever you want. But on top of that, you can actually build in any other areas. We also have added the AI risk assistance. So any particular industry sector, industry area, you can actually create a framework, and it will actually generate a risk, such as, if any of you are in the agriculture forestry area, you can create a framework environmental risk, and you can state such as maybe risk for wheat production. Location can be France. Wheat production France. Environmental impact reduction. I know there's a lot of baguettes. Okay, so now you can actually see that entire risk resolution right over here. You can actually visualize it and actually keep on working at it. But at the same time, from discover risk resolution, you can also like build controls around it. You can actually say that, hey, what are the controls tied to it? And all of these risk register items, once you've selected it, you can view it, and you can start adding risk controls tied to it. So this is your control map. Here's what the risk you had from before, and here's what you have now. So again, guys, the objective was to like give you guys a view on how risk management can be tied towards governance. I showed you a view on our AI risk assistant tool, IRA. We're going to do a demo on it, I think coming in December. But this is our product that helps you and supports you in the areas of risk management for your organization. And utilizing risk management, you can definitely deliver on enterprise level governance for your organization. And aside from enterprise risk management, we also have project risk management and a plethora of other tools that we're also working with. So that's pretty much it. I will stop sharing now,